With a number of COVID-19 cases maintaining throughout the state of Texas, there'll be more questions regarding the school year. Though we still don't have all the answers, we'll be publishing episodes weekly to provide what information we do have and keep you updated on the 2021 school year. I'm Andrew Kim, the Superintendent of Schools of the Comal Independent School District. Joining me today is our school finance folks. We have our Chief Financial Officer, David Anderson, and also our Executive Director for School Finance, Crystal Hermesch, is here with me today. Now, school finance is not necessarily related to COVID-19, or people may ask, well, how is it related? Well, yes. So there is quite a bit of discussion about how we sustain this and how we maintain financial integrity, and of course, how are we affording the many of the things that we are implementing? So there's a lot of, I think, connections to this topic that I want to kind of bring forward today. So first and foremost, David, what's been the, well, just let's think about this from your perspective, from a financial perspective. You know, this is something that you've had experiences with in the business side of things with COVID-19, or what do you remember in school business that is somewhat related to this, that, you know, there's a tremendous amount of expenditures that need to be done to help support the schools and make that work? Anything that comes to your mind?
Well, I've been fortunate over the many years, I guess, because I haven't been so much in a district that has experienced any kind of emergent situations, but it's reminded me of districts on the coast or other areas that have been subject to flooding or other kinds of natural disasters, tornadoes, things where you have to have a large amount of expenditures in an unexpected short amount of time to get school back to normal operations. So there's some similarities to that.
But no pandemic.
No pandemic, no. But there are some similarities with additional expenses for sure.
So I think in some sense, you know, we're probably geared more towards what you just mentioned there, because we've seen events like that, of course, in recent events. And so I think it certainly jogs my memory back in our previous school district that you and I served about the Hurricane Katrina issue that we had to deal with quite a bit. So very unique. But so when we think about this situation, though, what are the main issues or challenges or things that you had to quickly adopt and go forward with that? I don't know if Crystal wants to also chime in just as much.
I would say as far as expenses, it's just the timeliness. Like, things were needed kind of in an emergent way to get remote learning up and running. And so some of those, you know, a lot of the reimbursements are coming in after the fact. So the district had to front a lot of the funding for Chromebooks and to get the network up to speed, cleaning supplies, Wi-Fi buses, just things like that, so that everybody could get back to functioning as normal. And now we're kind of on the backside of that, where we're trying to apply for those reimbursements, whether through the CARES Act funding or FEMA. And hopefully, you know, we'll see some of those funds back.
Yeah. Now, there might be some thoughts out there that there is plenty of money out there in the federal dollars or the CARES Act or the ESSER funds, which is another funding out there sourced from the federal government, or even state funding. Is that the case, or is that not the case?
To an extent, both the CARES Act funding and any reimbursements that are coming from FEMA is a 75% match. So the district still has to front the 25%, or really you're fronting 100% of it and hoping to get 75% back. So those we'll see some revenue back from that, or some of those funds back, but it definitely won't be 100% of it.
And not everything will be reimbursed. So there's a very tight list of things that are considered to be reimbursable versus not reimbursable. Would that be correct?
It is. I mean, as a district, we're choosing maybe to go above and beyond in some areas on some items that maybe don't meet the criteria for being reimbursed, whether it's just different staffing things, whether keeping long-term subs on the payroll, or doing hazard pay above and beyond for some of our employees that were in direct contact that are just a little harder to document and get those things reimbursed.
Yeah.
But as far as the PPE or the technology needs, most of those items are included or allowable for reimbursement.
You know, David, I was thinking about that. The audience may not know that as a school district, we do have a budget cycle, just like a business functioning would do. So what's our budget cycle that people just need to know about?
Our budget year starts July 1 of every year, and it does present a little bit of a challenge when you have these expenses that don't always honor that pure cutoff of a fiscal year. So you got expenses may start in the springtime and cross over our fiscal years into the next year. So it presents some logistic challenge just about how to account for all that and make sure that we're ready to meet the normal obligations that we have every year.
Yeah, because when this started, essentially spring break, right after spring break of last school year, the 1920 school year, we were basically drawing down last year's budget and trying to accelerate that to be prepared to get ahead of the curve, really, in terms of supply chain issues, to get ahead for the opening of this school year that we're on right now. So, is there a certain thing that you found to be like, wow, uniquely challenging in terms of like acquisition or funding source, or wow, I can't believe we're actually buying this for the first time in a long time or any time, really?
Well, the way this is different is it's affected almost every district in the state and nationwide even, where you have some other natural disasters that are targeted on areas either on the coast or bigger. So it didn't really put such a strain on supply chains and the ability to get the things that you need to take care of this. This is a more broad issue, and so it's presented some challenges that haven't faced with other situations.
Yeah. What's been the most unique acquisition that we made to combat this COVID-19 situation? Anything that comes to your mind? I know, we don't prepare for these questions, so I may be putting you on the spot. But anything, I have one, of course, but personally,
probably the more unique, and I think it was a very worthwhile expense and stuff, was just the district-wide really deep clean that we contracted out and are prepared to do that on a quarterly basis if we need it. The purchase of additional supplies and everything for the classroom, I don't think was that unique. We've had other situations sort of like that, but that really contract with someone and just district-wide, going to really do that deep clean so you can give that level of assurance to not only families and staff, but just everybody involved so that they're prepared to come back to school.
Yeah. What about you, Crystal? Anything that comes to your mind by any chance?
I think it's just the uniqueness of the products that you're purchasing, whether it's the air purifiers that are new on the market, developed out of Texas A&M, or it's
actually University of Houston.
I think with Texas A&M, and or just plexiglass shield. Like we've ordered a lot of just supplies where we're making our own plexiglass so that we can keep kids separated and still be able to offer speech therapy and some of those close contact classes and one-on-one situations with teachers and students, and keep everybody protected at the same time.
Yeah. Now, just thinking about what we have to also consider is that we're not fighting the pandemic here, or just mitigating against the COVID spread is not really our main function of the business office, nor the main function of teachers in terms of what our jobs are. In fact, we essentially have become some of that, which is appropriate and necessary. But in reality, we still have to do the day-to-day job. The day-to-day job is to fund teacher salaries, hire teachers. Because of the COVID situation and the dollars associated with that, I guess in some sense that affected our overall budget in terms of what we were able to do for teachers, and also just the general, compensation issues and maybe even hiring additional teachers. Would we say that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it brings to mind, we talked a lot about just keeping students engaged. Well, that may not be the direct responsibility or function of the business office. We've got to create that environment, that situation where the students, parents, or everybody are able and want to still stay engaged. And that, as a result, drives the funding that we're able to provide for operations.
And we actually opened a brand new high school in the pandemic as well, too. So that added to the operational cost of our schools. And so as a result of that, we were stretched, in terms of our budget. And so, and of course, with the school finance law the way it is, and shortening of the revenue projections from the state level because of the school finance law, that really created some issues for us this year, let alone the COVID-19 pandemic situation.
Right. As you mentioned, we did open Davenport High School this year, and that's always, anytime we open a big campus, it takes a toll on additional staffing. In addition, the technology needs, and as we talked about before, we're seeking reimbursement on a lot of those things, and so we had to come up with all of that funding up front. with the reimbursements hopefully coming in later this fall, or even with FEMA, it's kind of hard to say how long it'll take to actually see those funds. In addition to that, you never know with a pandemic like this that we've never experienced before what our students are going to think about that, and how many of them were going to come back to school. And so we needed to be conservative on budgeting just to make sure that we were in a good place to get through the year.
Yeah. And while this is going on, in September 29th, our school board adopted one of the lowest tax rate for the school district in the history of the Comal Independent School District in the last 30 years, I believe. So what's our new tax rate?
$1.27.
So total tax rate of $1.27, and that generates X number of dollars. But in some sense, that dollar amount doesn't generate enough potentially to help support some of the things that we need to take care of, especially opening new schools, teacher hires, teacher compensation issues, which is the main worries that we always have, let alone fighting this pandemic and hopefully this will end here soon. But we should just be mindful about that in terms of how we work, I guess.
It's always a challenge in a fast growth district. I mean, we do get the benefit of additional students and the property value growth we see here in this district, but just keeping up with the fast growth and all the additional staff we need to hire to keep up with that growth, it just never quite seems to be enough. So we've definitely got some challenges ahead.
Yeah, and I know it's always a good thing to lower the tax rate, there's no doubt. But once again, we do that in concert with the school finance law. But at the same time, we have to be mindful of how we operate in such a way that we deliver still a level of quality and support for our students and our teachers. And that's a big concern, not only the health concerns that we have to think about this year especially. So, when you think about the future outlook, any forecasts in terms of budgetary outlook that you might want to chime in?
Well, I think probably most everyone knows, but we still are opening Piper High School next year. And so, again, we'll have kind of 2 years in a row where we're going to be hiring a lot of staff in order to open high schools. And so that's always a struggle on the budget side because we only grow so much. And when you have a big staffing amount coming off the top, it makes it difficult to add any additional programs or anything else that we might like to add into the budget.
Yeah, I mean, we're a growing business. I mean, it's almost like we're opening new storefronts as a result of the need and overcrowdingness in some of our schools. And so as a result of that, we need more staff. We need more people to work in those storefronts. And so we need that operational revenue just as much. So something of a challenge for us, but still, regardless, nonetheless, we are been very efficient in our operation. Certainly, once again, one of the lowest tax rate has been adopted by the board at $1.27 total tax rate. And also, when you consider the school district also gives a 20% additional discount on what's known as a local optional homestead exemption on top of what the state of Texas provides you as a homeowner in the Comal Independent School District. So instead of taxing you at $100,000 of your home, we tax you at $80,000 of your home. So that's a huge additional benefit to homeowners. But that means that our $1.27 tax rate, the effective rate is about $1.02. And so I think, once again, that's one of the lowest in the state of Texas, especially in a lot of the fact that if that's what you pay to get the value of education that we try to provide in Comal Independent School District, I think that's a pretty good deal out there. So great job to both of you guys and working with your staff. We appreciate it very much. It doesn't get a lot of attention because we just think that it's just an automatic thing. It just happens out there automatically. But really, there's a lot of work that goes on, a lot of spreadsheets, and a lot of calculations that goes on behind the scenes. So thank you guys very much for joining me today. We will soon be joined by, once again, folks from our health office, school improvement, as well as school and safety to talk about the latest in terms of COVID-19 management. Talk to you soon. Thank you very much.